Okay, with good Zoom? You're not going to do anything to us, Zoom? Not going to crash? Okay. All right, cool. Okay. Hey, folks, it's Walking Skull here with Sean Scullion and Martin Walker, the walking part of the walking part and the skull of the skull part. I'm getting gestures thrown at me by Martin on the Zoom call. We're on episode 6. Yes, we're on episode 6. Sorry, folks. It's been a while since I did sign language. I had to stop and be like, what is this charade we're playing here? So, yeah, and if you heard earlier on, yes, I was talking to Zoom in person and asking Zoom if they could probably not crash us again. That would be really nice, because last time we were recording this before the new year, and yeah, Zoom wasn't playing ball. Anyway, I'm Sean Scullion of the Skull part, and here is Martin Walker of the Walking part. How you doing, sir?
Or obviously, you're not meant to point out when I try and do a visual cue to you on an audio podcast. But for the people that are thinking that I was just randomly making up I was holding up 3 on 2 hands. I was literally holding up 6.
you gotta remember though, Martin. I'm not really quick at math. I have to sit back for a moment and go.
It's not even math. I was holding up fingers and I was going. I was mouthing episode 6.
Well, that's like double the sort of guess. I have to stop and go, oh, charades. I'm sorry that I'm not like Dustin Hoffman from Rain Man, Martin. Okay, I'm not going to stop and go. Yeah, here's 202 picks.
It's not even Dustin Hoffman from Rain Man level. I'm pretty sure Tom Cruise from Rain Man could have done it.
He just sort of stopped the conversation dead in its tracks and go, "Show me the money," and then you just be like. Okay, Tom, Jesus Christ.
But anyway, what do we do here, Sean?
What do we do here? Well, we talk and do chinwag about all the things that we saw, all the media stuff from television to movies, maybe potentially radio, and maybe fear, but we have no fear because the world is still on fire right now. And speaking of fire,
we're back into lockdown. Woo!
Hooray! I was just going to mention that actually. I was going to be like, speaking of world on fire, we're all back in our houses. We're all going to go slowly insane together again. Hooray!
Lockdown 3. Woo. This is where if I had better editing skills, I'd put the air horns in and everything. Like, yeah.
Woo. Just have like the Price is Right theme play, but then I think YouTube would just be like, no, you can't have copyright music here. Get that out of here.
Let's not have the Price is Right chase us down.
Yeah, okay then. But man, I gotta tell you, this trilogy so far, Lockdown Episode 3, Revenge of the Strain, is probably the most darkest one that we have so far. We're all back in the lockdown. Things are not going that well again. You know, it's pretty strange out there.
Yeah, it's almost like changing the arbitrary number at the back of the year didn't really change anything.
I know. Who would have thunk it?
It's almost like a pandemic doesn't go, oh, it's 2021. I'll stop.
Yeah, maybe that's what people thought with the Spanish flu back in the day. They all kind of thought, oh, good, we're going to get to like 19... God damn it, I don't remember the year. 19 something or other, and we'll all be okay. And then it happened.
1918 to 19 something. But they didn't worry about that back in the day. There wasn't anything that was worrying about that. That was literally what happened is that the medical professionals went, try not do this thing, and then they went, okay.
Yeah, that was back in the day where we had no anti-maskers running around being like, what? Oh, wake up, sheeple. You can't wear a mask around here. It's unaffected. You're going to be just fine.
There was anti-masks and anti-thingy people. They just didn't have a platform. Was the main thing. Well, they had a platform, but it was in the middle of a town square and everyone ignored them because it was a weird person yelling.
Yeah, and now we have the internet where we have those types of folks now spreading that through the internet.
Yes, imagine using a platform to get your own opinions heard. Thanks for listening to us on YouTube.
Thank you, good night. Okay, so who's going to start off with like what we've seen recently? And we had like a couple of good weeks during the Christmas and New Year holidays, so I think we've seen probably a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'll start if you want. I've got some set up to go.
It's only fair. I did the intro. You start us off with whatever you've seen, and then we go vice versa.
Yes, it's the same thing. But thanks for pointing out the structure of the episode.
You're welcome. For those wondering, if you need a good point man. Where I mean point man, I mean someone to point out things. You call me. I'm like CinemaSins, only not that charismatic and probably way more annoying.
Yeah, there you are. So the thing I watched, which was new for the end of the year, and actually a surprise for the end of the year for the UK, not the US. I think the US had it since August. I watched Spree on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that one. There was at Sundance last year, and I think I heard some good things about it. And then it got put on the Netflix this last month, I think, or no, this month. Yeah, the 1st of January.
Yeah, I watched it a couple days ago, so it was the 1st of January. But it's Joe Carey plays, or Joe Keery,
Kiri, I think
who
it's Kiri.
you would also know from the show I've never seen, Stranger Things, but I know he's in it. And it's
Yeah.
basically following this man who is in LA, and he's just very, very, I think the youths use the term thirsty for followings. And he wants to basically be everyone who's on YouTube, where he gets a massive following and gets paid and given stuff for free. But
Basically, he wants to be like Logan or Jake Paul.
yeah, but he takes it to the extreme where he starts promoting this thing called The Lesson, which is going to
Mhm,
happen again at this arbitrary date. And he works for a fake Uber type company called Spree.
mhm.
And he decides he's going to go and try to, like, well, it's kind of got a double meaning, the name. He goes on a killing spree, basically. And
Oh, that's cool.
it's a very well thought, put together movie, because it is purely filmed through GoPros, which are attached to, I believe, he's driving a hybrid Toyota or something. But it's kind of like search. Is it Searching?
Searching, yeah,
Yeah,
the movie with John Cho where he's looking for his daughter.
yeah, the one that's filmed all the way like through only angles that the cameras they have pointed out to you can get,
Yep, yep,
or
that's the one.
phones or stuff like that, where
Hmm.
basically he goes through this whole thing, and you initially think it's going to be oh, he's just trying to get the most people in a day, but
Hmm.
it has funny moments. It's a very good film. It
Hmm.
catches you by surprise a couple of times. David Arquette's in it, Misha Barton's in it. You get surprises with the people that are actually in it, and it was quite fun to watch, because
Hmm.
obviously he's not like a Dexter level killer where he knows what he's doing and everything. He's just sort of kind of making it up as he goes along.
Yeah, like I think because I've not seen it yet. I might probably go ahead and watch it at some point later on. But I think when I've heard about the reception I had at Sundance, it kind of struck me as more of a sort of like American Psycho type deal, where you have a character who's trying to get to like some sort of top of something, like either dominating over others or just top of a profession. And this character kind of has more of a Patrick, maybe has a Patrick Bateman sort of vibe, from what I've read about the the movie. And yeah, it sounds really interesting, and I do kind of like ideas where they sort of take things to a sort of filming extreme, like you say, the different angles and the GoPros and whatnot. And thankfully, it's just GoPros, because the last time I saw a major movie use a GoPro was, I think, The Hobbit 2, and let me tell you, super distracting.
I'm quite happy to say that I only saw the last Hobbit film, so I never got to see the GoPro scene that everyone kind of craps on.
Yeah, you're lucky, although maybe not lucky because you saw the third one, and the third one is garbage. Sorry about that. I had to get that out of my throat to clear it out. Anywho, so Spree.
Spree, yeah, I'd recommend it. It has gory elements, but it's not Saw level. Like, there's obviously he's killing people, so there is bloodshed, but it's not like he's doing a what's his name? Like, he's not eating someone's liver and stuff like that. It's not that level of stuff.
Right,
It's
it's
not
just
American Psycho level. He's not dropping a chainsaw on someone from the sixth
the bal.
floor.
Yeah, like he's not like it doesn't sound like he's more doing it just cause. It sounds more like he's doing it just to sort of do it just for the views. Yeah, I think
Yeah, he literally the way that they portray it is that he is live streaming the whole thing. So you actually that's thanks for reminding me. That's a good point. You actually get to see him slowly gain like followers and
Mm.
stuff, and viewers and comments appear as it's like an Instagram live stream or a different kind of live stream. So you actually get to read different sort of things appearing, where you get obviously the internet trolls that are taking the mick out of him. You get the people that are
Mm.
like, why are you doing this? This is all disgusting, but are still watching it. And you
Yeah.
get like certain character moments in the actual script coming across the thing. Like you get him talking to his mate who's like, what? No one's watching this and it's all fake. All that kind of stuff.
Mm. Like trying to talk him out of this, being like, dude, what are you doing? This is getting really sad now. Just cut it out.
And it's not even talking him out of it. He's just making fun of him. Like his
Mm.
friend isn't really a friend.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones.
Mm. Yeah, this is really interesting because I think, like I say, it was at Sundance last year, and then when things were okay, and then like pandemic happened, and I think the release of it was topsy-turvy. I think it came out in cinemas really briefly here in the UK, like when it was okay to go back to cinemas again. It was like really briefly, so not particularly a long run, considering. So, which is a shame because I think it was one of those I was gonna try see, but I obviously didn't really want to go out as much because of the pandemic, and
Right.
so I kind of missed it. But hey, it's on Netflix, so I'll probably get a chance
It's
to check it out at
definitely a
some point.
surprise. I normally don't go for the quote unquote thrillers and horror movies where it's just someone going around killing people, but I actually enjoyed it.
Hmm. Yeah, I find that kind of like stuff kind of fascinating, just because character studies are one of my many many jams. So I might probably check it out just because character study, unique approach to its subject. So
But anyway, Sean, what have you watched in the last
oh,
2 weeks?
let me get my notes here. I've watched plenty, but I can't really decide. So I'm probably gonna go. So I'm probably gonna start off with probably the most recent example that I've seen. Like I'll list, but don't get me wrong. There was a bunch of good stuff that I saw. But I managed to watch a French film called Le Haine on BFI Player that is very good. It's amazing. It's a masterpiece. Check it out if you can. I even watched Uncle Frank from Amazon, which was really good, really chill. I liked
Hey,
it. And also surprisingly decent the third act. That third act, completely incredible in terms of like how unexpected the ending was. But the main thing I want to talk about, because I watched it last night, it's fresh in me noggin, and I kind of want to get it out here. I watched Eraserhead for the first time. um, I did a New Year's treat where I bought a haul of Blu-rays, a bunch of them being Criterion collections of 12 Angry Men, on the Waterfront. Razorhead was one of them, and 5 Easy Pieces. And and the Razorhead out of those 4 I've never seen before, and I figured, hey, I'm a big fan of David Lynch. I'll check it out. I've never seen this before, so this should be fun.
fair enough. Is that the 1977 one?
Yep, 1977, starring Jack Nance, a movie where its plot is very hard to describe, except it's about a guy who has to look after a rather deformed child. And let me tell you, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to describe this movie in a very normal way, because Jesus.
I mean,
Oh,
I could read the IMDb plot synopsis for you right here if you want.
sure, give it a shot.
See if this lines up with anything that you watched yesterday. I'll try to put my best voice on.
All right, okay.
And no, I won't, because my voice is always going to sound like rubbish. Henry Spencer tries to survive his industrial environment, his angry girlfriend, and the unbearable screams of a newly born mutant child.
Yep, that's it's pretty accurate. But when you watch the actual like thing, the actual movie, it's there. But then there's everything else where it's up to you to sort of interpret what the whole thing actually means. And I know we don't want to do that, because I think if we sat here and I tried to interpret what the film is, we'd be here for like 2 hours over a chalkboard, me going insane, and just being like, so here's what this means, here's what that means, blah 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 blah. Because that's kind of the thing of David Lynch movies, even though they're like something like Blue Velvet or Wild at Heart, where they have a very streamlined plot. There's a lot of interpretation there you can interpret for yourself, and you're going to have different people with different opinions on what the films are actually about. But with Razorhead, it's one of those ones where people are going to have many, many unique interpretations of it. And quite frankly, it's also one of the most disturbing films I think I've ever seen. And I think there was a description that Stephen King once used to describe his adaptation, Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining, where he called it a film that actively hurts people. I honestly describe Razorhead being like that as well. Like, it's got this atmosphere where it just makes you greatly uncomfortable. Like, And even the sound design, I think you'll appreciate this because Martin, you're a sound guy. You love sounds, obviously.
I mean, most humans like sounds.
We all do, except for those who are deaf. We're really, really sorry. Gonna
I
have to
mean,
cut
no,
that one out. That was awful.
no. It is unfortunate that they are deaf, but
Yeah,
how are they listening right now?
that's true. God damn, that's true. There's probably ways like hearing aids are pretty advanced, and they're pretty cool.
If you are deaf and you are listening, we apologize, but
We're sorry.
we are sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sean is doing sign language, I
Sign language to
presume.
resume. Yes. Oh God, Sean, stop! You're making it worse for yourself. Anyway, where was it? Yeah, the sound design in Eraserhead is one of the most haunting that I've ever heard because a lot of the sound design in David Lynch's films, spawning from like Eraserhead, are very like industrial or these really weird ambient noises. It's really hard to describe it other than that. At a point, it felt like I was being assaulted. If that makes sense, like someone was cranking up the volume and it was just hurting my ears and whatnot. And it
It's
gets
what I like to call a meaty movie, where you can feel every sound.
yeah, there we go. What you call it again? That's kind of a good description.
A meaty movie,
There we go.
like it's me. Like I would describe. Well, I'll let you get back to it, but I would describe I, Tonya or the first Jack Reacher film as a
Mm-hmm.
meaty movie. Like where I, Tonya, she has the moments where there's physical abuse that happens. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
feel the hits and you're a bit
Yeah,
that hurt. Or with Jack Reacher, the car chase when he's in the orange Mustang. It's a
right.
meaty sounding thing. Like you can only hear that. There's no soundtrack in the background trying to make it seem cooler.
Yeah, I guess you could describe it as that, where there's not really a lot of impact of the sounds. It's just there constantly in the background. So the meatiness of it is like there for like an hour and a half constantly. And then you get to like when you actually see the baby of Eraserhead. Um, I actively yelled out, "What the hell?" as when I saw it. It was one of those like uncanny valley things, and the fact that like it was a like obviously it was like 1977. There was like no CGI around that time, and when you see like the actual like prop,
I've just looked it up.
yeah, when you see the actual prop in action, it's genuinely one of the most disturbing things you've ever seen. And then it just continues and it gets like more and more like out there and more grotesque. And it reaches a climax where I remember just sort of like shrinking into myself. Like I was becoming a turtle. It was one of those like things where I don't think I'm ever gonna forget the climax of that film because it gets to a point where just things kind of like fall apart, but not in the negative sense, in a sense where it's just like the whole thing is crumbling into itself, and you're watching it happen. Kind of like watching one of those tower complexes that have been abandoned for years get knocked down, and it's just one of those like fascinating like things, and it's going to be one that I'm probably going to be finding it hard to describe how I thought of it. Like I think it's genuinely one of the best films I've ever seen, but at the same time, I can't exactly um, recommend it to folk because some people are going to hate it for it being very pretentious and disturbing, and some are going to be more or less in the middle. But we're not going to be sure what they're seeing. And some like me are going to love it and just be like, "Oh, I loved it," but I have no fucking idea what it was referring to. But besides that, I loved it and I recommend it. At the same time, don't watch it. It's up to you, really. It's like the drug PSAs that Ron Reagan used to do. It's up, maybe not. I don't know. It's up to you either way.
I believe the drug PSAs that the people used to do was just say no.
Yeah, that
Not
was it. I don't know. I don't know why that appeared in my brain, but basically
they
the film.
weren't they weren't doing the war on drugs, but going, it's up to you. It's up to you if you want to do drugs. I know this is a war on drugs, but it's up to you what side
Yeah,
you choose.
I don't know why my brain went there, but I think the main thing is think of a Razorhead in terms of recommendation. Think of it like a cigarette packet. You know how like you turn a cigarette packet around, it has the advertisements of what smoking can do to you and the damages it can do. A Razorhead is kind of like that in terms of recommending it. You can watch it. It'll probably mess you up a little bit. You'll probably just be like, what did I just saw? Like I'm still thinking about it, and I'm still sort of like freaking out by it by thinking, oh Jesus, what was that? Oh my God. But yeah, it's kind of like a cigarette packet where it warns you about some of the things that will come of it. and you can enjoy it as much as you can, but you'll never ever forget the first time you'll ever see a Razorhead. And like I says, I loved it, but I find it really hard to recommend it to people.
I'd say at bare minimum, people that are listening, at least Google what the baby looks like, because I just have, and it's confusing with no any sort of like context for anything. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah, that's like I mostly got Eraserhead references out of context until I saw it, and then when I watch it, nothing still makes sense. But at the same time, at least I could sit back and go, "Yeah, the baby, he was awful, and I don't like the look of it."
Think Super Mario Bros. The movie with Bob Hoskins and the other guy in it. It's like what they tried to make the Toads look, or the Goombas look like there. It's just it's that, but also like something else. It's really like just Google it right now while you're listening. Google it.
Yeah. For those who are listening and are avid Super Mario fans, it's like what would happen if David Lynch tried to adapt one of Bowser's goons in the real life, not the Goomba, but one of the little Koopa turtles. It's like he tried to adapt one of those in the real life, and it just came out all wrong.
Yeah, like there's just Google it, and then you can have a look. That's literally.
Yeah, and
there's
then
no other things we can say about it.
yeah, and then it'll be up to you to watch it. Like I says, I can't really recommend it. Hell, I can't even recommend it to my co-host here because I'm.
I mean,
Because
I'm curious now.
yeah, I mean, I do recommend if you're interested in the sound design, I do recommend it just for what it did with its sound and how that managed to influence David Lynch's other films over the years. Because since you're into your sound design, for those who are listening who are into their sound design, David Lynch has a very unique way of doing sounds for not only Razorhead but the rest of his filmography, even the show Twin Peaks and its follow-up miniseries. But yeah, it's pretty out there. I loved it, but I can't exactly describe how I love it to people. It's just gonna be one of those things where it's like, oh, gonna need a whiteboard for that, mate. Do you have any pens?
It's weird. I'll say that much when it comes to looking at it. But we'll move on to something that's a little less weird.
Yeah, sure. Let's go. Go back to being lighthearted because.
So I have been, speaking of older stuff, mine isn't as old as yours. Mine's started in 2009 and then finished in 2015. I know what you're not thinking. It's not a really long movie. It's not Wonder Woman 3, and they've just made it 5 years long.
Like they started production somehow back in 2009. They actually went back in time to film it as a proper period piece.
Yeah, I've been watching. We are big fans of the gentleman that created the show. I've been watching another Bill Lawrence series. I've been watching Cougar Town, which has got Courtney Cox, Krista Miller, because he likes to put his wife in shows. Busy Phillips, which is the best name in the world. Dan Bird and Josh Hopkins and Ian Gomez. They call themselves the cul-de-sac crew because they live in a cul-de-sac. And all they really do is drink wine and go. It's as close to a live action cartoon as I can think of.
The cul-de-sac crew. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't tell whether that's the funniest thing I've ever heard or one of the stupidest nicknames ever, but I think it's hilarious.
It's so weird. Like I've been telling Sean about it. It's very fourth wall breaking. Like I'm at the fourth season right now, and Cougar Town is that Courtney Cox's character Jules Cobb has her husband cheat on her, so she has a divorce. Like before the first season starts, she's been divorced and she's currently what you would describe as a cougar, which is an older woman looking for younger men to just have sex with and not really having a relationship with. But by the end of season 1, everything changes. So the fact that it's called Cougar Town from season 1 to season 6, the creator Bill Lawrence and Kevin Beigel, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. They hate it. They hate the name Cougar Town. So every time the splash screen comes up that says Cougar Town, you have a random moment where I think the best one was when they went, I mean, it's got nothing to do with cougars anymore, but who cares? You're still watching. There's other ones where they literally, like, their subtitles have always got. There was one where they scratched out a couple of names that they were going to go for. They literally, I think 2 episodes ago, while I was watching it, they changed it to Cougar Town Abbey for an episode. But it's so weird, and it's not Ted Lasso level of everything's amazing, this guy's happy. Like, they still have real moments where she's got like a son who's just going off to college, and like she'll be alone for the first time in, say, 18 years. They have like actual real moments, but they also have a storyline where she still mates with her ex-husband, because her ex-husband's a redneck and kind of stupid. But him and his best mate chase a red balloon for, say, midpoint season 1 to the end of season 1, because this red balloon was released by a car seller, car dealership, and it's got like $2,000 in it. And if you find it, you can win this $2,000 and all this stuff. But literally, first time they do this, it's just it's just them two chasing it. And then by the last episode, you have the whole of the cast being like, it's there. Like the son is graduating from high school, and he is going to give off this big speech, and he's going to be like all emotional and stuff like that. And then in the background, he just sees this balloon start floating past everyone's things, and like his dad's watching there, and he's trying to indicate to his dad that the balloon's there, and his dad just wants him to have a moment to himself. It's like, no, it's fine, no, just keep on going with your speech. And then literally he like doesn't even get into his speech, and he goes, Cougar Town Rose, and then runs after this balloon, and the rest of them chase after this balloon.
Like, I remember when it was first advertised. Like, it was on, I think in the UK it was on E4, I believe, and it was one of those like advertised things where I think it had like, I think some people were describing it as maybe a new Sex in the City or something. I don't know. And it didn't really look that appealing to me. And I think as it continued, and then as I started watching more television stuff, it just sounded like one of those unappealing things to me. But I gotta say, the way you're describing it, I think that was kind of the thing they could have tapped into and pitched rather than just going, here's Courtney Cox and friends in a show.
I can see why they didn't want to go for the weird aspect of it, because obviously they were trying to sell a show, and when Bill Lawrence tried to sell Scrubs, it wasn't like, oh, it's going to be this hospital drama that's got comedy elements, and then it turned into this kid who like watching Zach Braff grow up, and then him daydream about manatees and all that kind of stuff. But literally, they are open alcoholics, like they're always drinking wine, and they even get to the point where other characters are like, so what time is it? And they're like, 6 a.m, morning wine. And they're literally just like, they have this whole game called that her ex-husband makes up called Penny Can, that I think was just something that the cast started doing to fanny around during recordings, and then it slowly like bled into the show to the point where he sells it to Lou Diamond Phillips.
Lou Diamond Phillips is in Cougar Town. Oh my god! I kind of need to check this out just because I like Lou Diamond Phillips, and I think that's quite weird how he turned up in the show.
They have like really random cameos come in and out. They're literally, and this is a vague spoiler for the later seasons, one of the characters called Andy runs for mayor, and then it's almost like they forget that happens, because in the next season, someone's talking to him, and he's like, well, as mayor, you should be able to like do all this stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, I won the mayor thing. I completely forgot. It's just the most ridiculous. Like, it gets very fourth wally, where obviously, if you know a little bit about TV shows, there's an A plot, there's an A story, a B story, and a C story. And usually the A story is the most important thing they want to go throughout the whole episode. They have the B story, which is kind of like just sort of thing, and then they have the C story. And Courtney Cox's ex-husband, who's called Bobby Cobb, he lives in a broken boat, but like it's livable. He lives in a broken boat in a car park in Florida, and like they all live in Florida, and you slowly begin to think that if they're on the boat, it's basically the boat is the sea story, where it's not really that important. It's just sort of like breaking up the thing. Literally by season 4, they actually nicknamed the boat the Sea Story. And they get that level of fourth wall breaking where it's literally like, you just know. Like, obviously, it went 2009 to 2015, but there was moments where it didn't get renewed, and it wasn't quite cancelled, but it was put on the back burner. So they'll be like, why didn't we spend Christmas together last year? We normally do it every other year. And they just have to make up sort of random stuff. Like, one of them was like, I fought that guy and we went to prison, remember? And it was like, oh yeah, we went to prison. And then they do a flashback to them going to prison.
I generally need to watch this now. Like, it was one of those like shows that was always on, and and it never really spoke to me personally. But I think after hearing it, it was one of those shows that starts off as one thing and gradually becomes another thing. It's quite commendable because you don't really get a whole lot of shows that kind of do that. You get some shows that kind of take themselves seriously and try to present it, but this has like a community approach where it just from a certain point it kind of just stops and goes, shit, let's just make it up as we go along, basically.
It finds its niche and then it exploits that niche. Like, it goes, it's not really getting prime time, but we know we have people that like this kind of humor, so we're going to stick to this kind of humor, but maybe exaggerate it a little bit.
Yeah, those are kind of the best shows, if I'm being honest. Like like you get some shows off the bat that are great, like Breaking Bad or Twin Peaks or even Justified. You'll get some shows that off the bat are quite good, or even Justified a little bit. I think by half through season one, that's kind of where it found its stride. But then you have shows like Cougarton, from what you're describing it. It sounds like a show where like they start off as one thing, and then when they found a niche where it's like, oh god, we found the actual perfect piece for this show, it kind of carries on and just sort of does its own thing rather than like trying to be the other thing, which is commendable because you just get shows that sometimes they take themselves way too seriously, or they find a niche but they're kind of just like, no, we won't touch that because we want to be like this other show or be appealing to this certain demographic. But yeah, that sounds really entertaining, and I want to check it out now.
It's a great show. Like, obviously they can't just have them working all the time, so there's certain points where they're like, don't you like run an estate agent? And she's like, oh yeah, I do. And it's just like moments where they're like, Krista Miller and Ian Gomez are married in the show, and they have a kid called Stan. And they keep on making jokes that, well, Stan obviously can't work all hours of the day because he's 3, so they can't obviously like put him in every single show and stuff like that. And they literally have jokes where like Krista Miller's character will try and give parenting advice to someone. Will try and give parenting advice to Courtney Cox, and Courtney Cox will joke, I will give you £1,000 if you can tell me exactly where your son is right now. Like, they point out the flaws. They don't just be like, pave over the fact that this woman's got a son, but you never actually see the son that much, and she's normally spending her time with Courtney Cox. They actually point out and go, you've got a son. Why are you not spending more time with your son?
Like, it just sounds like a riot, eh? Like, it's a sort of show where, like, it sounds like everybody on board just was having fun, and it just sounds like one of those like shows that, by proxy, the audience is having fun. Like, that just sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah, it's free on Amazon Prime, so if you've got Amazon Prime, I'd watch it. To be honest, as much as I'm selling the show, I wouldn't really pay for it, but if it's so pleases you, pay for it. But it's a good show.
Yeah, I mean, if it's on Amazon Prime, I'll definitely give it a look. We'll definitely give it a look. See, but I'm currently in the middle of a binge. I'm currently in the middle of binging Bob's Burgers, the animated show, which is really, really good. Like, it's a show that I've been meaning to watch for a while, and I think I found it on the Prime one day, and I was just like, right, I need to watch this show because I've heard nothing but good things. Genuinely one of the better animated sitcoms I think I've ever seen. In an era where Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park, and all the others have kind of went downhill a little bit. And you get shows like BoJack Horseman, which kind of like elevated to like huge drama, and you have Bob's Burgers, kind of similar to The Simpsons and the other stuff. And it's a lot more entertaining and a lot more endearing, and just it's a good time. I'm a big fan of the show. It's really good, and it's got H. John Benjamin in it voicing Bob himself, and he's really, really good. H. John Benjamin being the voice actor from Archer and other such memorable roles.
You'll know him if you've paid attention to anything. Basically, if you're into this type of humor, you'll know him because he's been in stuff like American Dad and stuff.
Aye. And and the humor in Ball's Burgers. It's kind of like the humor that you and I tend to have, or that I tend to have of people where we'll have a conversation, and that conversation just devolves into like us just like doing whatever it is we're talking about. We just sort of start off with one thing and then just sort of go, oh yeah, and then this thing happened, and then that thing happened. Like I read recently that like they write their scripts for the show for individual episodes, and they let the cast just to improvise. I mean, you listen to the show, it really sounds like they're just ripping off one another, like just sort of like improvising lines, and it's the sort of like comedy show where it kind of succeeds in its medium because it doesn't look like they're cracking on screen. It just, you can even hear like some of them giggle, being like, "Oh, okay," like they're cracking up almost, and it's kind of really fun to listen to. It's kind of, it has that same effect. We're just kind of, you're like watching friends talk to each other, and it's like, oh man, this is, I miss that.
I know we shouldn't probably like point it out, but how smooth was that transition from my show to your show?
Very smooth, I know. It was going to be like a quick recommendation as well. I didn't want to like be too long in it, but then I just sort of divulged into like talking about how good the show is.
Yes, like obviously we're not meant to do that, but that was smooth. That was good.
I know. And there's one thing
That
I'm
was
trying
a
to do.
good transition there. We almost
I know.
sounded like we do this for a living.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I mean, I think when I did like that college radio show real briefly, I think I did a couple of like smooth transitions, although I can't remember because it's been roughly 80 years in COVID time. I've done that, so you know.
Yeah, that was at least 100 years ago.
I know. Feels like it, doesn't it?
Wait, I'm gonna do a little bit of thingy here. Have you watched Soul?
Oh, I could have brought that up. Oh, ding ding
Well,
ding ding ding,
I have
Scullion.
also watched that, and normally we talk about something that we've both seen in the middle here. We're
Yeah.
coming up to, we've just passed like a half-hour point.
Mhm.
So I'll let you go first, and then I say that, and he instantly drinks water. So I'm going to
Sorry,
fill in the
I was.
blank.
I figured, like, I genuinely figured you were gonna like see what the film was about. I thought I was in the clear. I thought I was okay. All right, let me just get IMDb up here. Sorry, folks.
I know, no, right. God. Just after we talked about how professional we were.
Yeah, it's all falling apart. All right.
Okay,
So,
I've got it in front of me.
all
I
right.
will read it. So basically, Soul is a Disney Pixar movie created this year and released on Christmas Day for everyone, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, Christmas Day. Yeah, it was Christmas Day.
And it is Jamie Foxx plays a musician who's lost his passion for music and is transported to out of his body. What the Soul is being worded very weirdly on IMDb. A musician has lost his passion for music, is transported out of his body, and
Mhm.
must find his way back with the help of an infant soul learning about herself.
Yeah.
Now, this might be big spoilers, but if you've seen the trailer, it's
Just
not.
pass it
He
on.
dies. That's why he gets transported out of his body.
Yeah, and another thing as well is that he doesn't exactly lose his passion. Like in the film, he's still really passionate about it. It's just
IMDb,
like
that was wrong.
what? Like I was gonna stop you there, and I think your internet stopped. It was like, whoa, buddy, hold on, that's not what the film's about. Even the Wi-Fi had to stop you talking.
That was basic. Like, we'll give you an actual thing. So, Jamie Foxx plays. Let's see if IMDb's at least got this right. Jamie Foxx plays Joe, who is a man in his late 30s, early 40s, who is a musician teacher, a music teacher, a music teacher at a high school, and is obviously trying to get these kids passionate about music, but he didn't, like I presume some people who feel that they've went downhill, he didn't like want to be a music teacher, he's just doing it.
Mhm.
And then he gets the chance of a lifetime where one of his ex-students, like, I now, thanks to you, I've been playing in this band forever, and we need someone to help us.
Mhm.
You're a musician, you're a really good musician, and he gets the chance of a lifetime to play with this person, but unfortunately, on his way to see this thing, he dies by, I think you get shown in the trailer, but I
Yeah.
won't say it in case it's a spoiler. He dies on his
Mhm.
way there and is transported to, I think they don't call it the afterlife in this, they just call it the beyond.
Yeah, I think the Great Beyond. No, I think it's either Beyond, the Great Beyond. Can't remember, but it's certainly the Beyond of
Yeah.
sorts.
But without spoiling too much, he gets sent to the Great Beyond and then meets Tina Fey, it is the Great Beyond because Tina Fey's character's at the Great Before.
Yeah, there we go. There we are.
See,
We figured it out. We did it. We
this is how
solved
we
this
remember
mystery
stuff.
together. Yeah.
She is somewhere who, in this universe, you have a soul, hence the film name Soul. Your soul is there before you are actually born. So the Great Before is where you learn, quote unquote, who you're going to be. Are you going to be anxious? Are you going to be an asshole? Are you going to be
Mhm.
someone who talks too much? Are you going to be someone who doesn't talk enough? All that kind of stuff. And then they team up. And I thought it was a really good movie. It's quite a happy movie. Talks about purpose of life and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely adored this movie too. Like genuinely, I remember when it came out on Christmas Day. I think my family were wrapping up the Christmas celebrations and whatnot, and it got to like, I think after a game we played, I remember like going upstairs and I had Soul right there to play, just because I was like, right, this is going to be my movie of choice afterwards. I'm going to be leaving that there, and then watching it, it's honestly one, like, I think because we had like 5 6 days left of 2020, it crashed my top 10, like legitimately. It just
I think it did it for a lot of people. It quite honestly, there's a chance you would have forgotten about it if it came out in cinema earlier on in the year. But the fact that everyone was, most definitely, most people were there
hmm.
watching it either on Christmas Day or after.
Well, knowing me, if it came out with like other stuff that was supposed to come out in 2020, I would have probably, it probably would even have made, it probably either would have made the list or probably would have been in honorable mentions or even lower. But besides from that, I love this movie. I absolutely adore it. And it's one of those movies I think a lot of people needed in the final parts of 2020, because we're all stuck in our homes. We're all kind of like wondering, God, what is the purpose of all this? Well, why are we here and all that sort of stuff? And you have even people, regardless of the pandemic, who sort of wonder what their purpose is. Because I get to that sometimes. Because I want to do a profession where it sounds kind of meaningless, and people, even the government, are kind of like, hey, get a real job because the arts and all that are not really that worth it. And then like you start questioning yourself, like what their purpose is. And you watch something like Soul, where it happily tells you, hey, hold on a minute. You don't have to define yourself by the job or the purpose that you have. You can define yourself by what you've done in your life so far, or what you've done in your life, whatever. And genuinely, I cried like a big, big baby.
I
I
did because I'm a man. I
oh
didn't
oh
cry.
oh, I can feel that. I can feel the testosterone radiating off the off the
Here's
Zoom
some
chat.
early year toxic masculinity for you there. I didn't cry.
Oh no! Oh, I'm shriveling up right now. My what's the word? My soy cuck philosophies are shriveling up like a bean. I don't know
We
what that
should also,
was.
for people that don't always get humor, that was a joke. We have both cried at cartoons and several things. Final Space being one of them.
Yeah, we've confided in each other about some of the stuff we've cried at. Hell, I'm pretty sure Martin may have saw me cry at a few things.
That's because I made it happen.
Watching that time we went to see the man and the old man, the gun. You're just like punching my arm constantly. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, stop it,
I was
stop doing it. Oh,
slowly stabbing you.
Martin, stop! It's getting really sore. Shh, not now. Robert Bradford's talking. Anyway, so yeah, it's honestly one of Pixar's best films, which is incredibly like nice to say, because they haven't really had anything that you can call their best since Coco. Like, and you'll have people, you'll have people that'll debate that and just be like, oh, but it's not. They haven't done a great thing since Inside Out or whatever. And it's just nice to see them like make a movie that's actually really, really, really good. You
Yeah,
know.
I agree. It's good that obviously they need to make money, so things like Toy Story 4 happens,
Mhm.
and like I know we don't really talk about it that much. Cars 2 happens and all that kind of stuff. But it's good to see that they still have, even in pandemic times, they can still make an original story that doesn't have. I mean, don't they even say that at the end credits? They're like, this was made from a distance in most people's homes.
Yeah, like I did see that in the credits. I thought that was a cute little touch. Like like it was clearly made for cinemas, like clearly. And then obviously our friend COVID kind of like got out of its jail and was just like, "Hey, this world is ours for the taking," and then just sort of like ruined things. But we at least we got it. I think that's the most important part. At least we got the film. At least people went. At least people are now watching it, and I'm glad that it wasn't charged like £15 or £30 like Mulan was.
Well,
What was up with
I'm
that,
glad they
man?
figured out their mistake with Milan. Well, mistake. They still made billions, but I'm glad they went. No, we'll give everyone this as a Christmas present.
Yeah, like it kind of feels like they must have watched it and were just like, we can't sell this. We generally cannot, like, if that makes sense, we can't like charge people additional fund for this. We got to just show it on there. And it just feels like a really nice Christmas present, you know. And I got to say one thing that I love about it, and this is going to be me like just talking about another like favorite of mine, the soundtrack, the
Mm.
gosh darn soundtrack for this. Oh
Obviously,
my god.
it's not for you if you don't like jazz and all that and like soulful music, but it's not to say
Yeah,
other music don't have souls. Put them in, but it's a really good soundtrack. And
yeah. I
Trent
remember
Reznor and someone else did it. Like it's a weird
Atticus
choice.
Ross.
Yeah,
Atticus Ross.
it's a weird choice for soundtrack. Like you don't expect Trent Reznor and stuff to do a
Mhm.
jazz album, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I did some research into it, and like they got like another guy to do the jazz compositions for the jazz parts of the soundtrack. So you've got like Atticus and Ross, the Academy Award-winning duo behind the scores for Social Network, and now Emmy Award winners for the Watchmen soundtrack. Which, by the way, the Watchmen soundtrack super rules, and you should listen to it. It's really, really good. And then you get them like doing this like soundtrack of this other guy. I can't. The name escapes me. I apologize if I forget your name, sir. But your jazz compositions for Soul was beautiful, and just it's a really well done combination. And I'm a big sucker for listening to a jazz sound. I remember like when you see Joe when he's like meeting up with these with this other gang, the woman on the saxophone being voiced by Angela Bassett, they do this like jazz number. I remember watching it and like suddenly just being like, oh yeah, yes, jazz beat. It just felt great to watch. And then you listen, and it's just the soundtrack of it, like the sounds and the battle to see who's gonna like get their music out. It's just really well done and just feels like you're watching a jazz concert. And you have like Jules' little beautiful piano solo, and you're kind of just like, oh yeah, this is this is a soundtrack. Then you get to not Atticus Fincher. I think of the character from To Kill a Mockingbird. Then you get to like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's like score for The Great Beyond and all the other stuff, and it's really really good. It's a unique mixture of like scores, and it's well done. I absolutely love this score.
Yeah, I also loved the surprise casting of Graham Norton in it.
I was wondering who he was. Like I remember listening to it, and it's like he sounds so familiar, but I can't
Yeah, I
exactly
recognized the
pin it.
voice. I actually had to Google it. I was like,
Yeah. I
oh,
think I IMDb'd it like afterwards because I turned off my Wi-Fi to watch it because obviously I'm trying to watch it in a cinema like atmosphere. And then like I remember afterward I IMDb'd it and I was so surprised that Graham Norton was in this and he's actually quite good.
yeah. It's not like the usual, oh, he's a big name, let's give him a slight cameo and he'll be in for like a minute or two. He's actually, without giving away too much, he's a quite a big character.
Yeah, he's kind of essential to the film's like plot motivation. And then you have like normally in like these sort of films they'll get like someone like James Corden to be in it, and no, they went for Graham Norton, which is perfect because he's got kind of the perfect voice for that character. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yeah.
think of the character I'm thinking of. I can now look at him and just think that's Graham Norton now. I can look that it just fits. It just fits is what I'm trying to say. And I got to say as well, big props to Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. I thought they were terrific in this movie as well, like their voice performances.
Just
Um,
paused for some reason. Are you okay?
so I was going to let you say something there. Sorry, I was
No.
giving you a turn to speak. Sorry. Anyway,
No,
I
I
was
think
saying,
everyone's really good. No, I've taken the pause now. The pause is mine. I
okay.
think
Oh
everyone. I
no.
think it's a really good movie. It's
Mhm,
not doesn't try to do too much. It's obviously an original idea. I like when they
mhm.
do the kind of like big question movies
Yeah.
because it gives you questions that you're like,
Mhm. It just like another thing I love about it, not to get too like technical, but one of my favorite aspects of the film is that it proves that Pete Docter, the director of Soul, or I think there's another director who worked with him on it, but it proves that Pete Docter is honestly the best director from Pixar because the films that he's made have all been like these genuinely excellent films. Like there's Monsters Inc. and then I think Up came afterward. I think there was something in between, but I can't remember. There was Monsters Inc. and then Up came afterward, and then after that there was Inside Out, and now we have Soul. This guy genuinely might be the best director out of the studio because he makes like some of the like profoundly questionable like films. Questionable not in the negative sense, but questionable. You're like, right, okay, so what would happen if like you saw if our emotions were like this? So what would happen if like our souls are like this, or monsters and House of Balloons and whatnot? Like he's taking a lot of these like huge adult themes and placing them into like children's films, and it's actually quite remarkable how he's able to do that. And watching Soul and the way it sort of like functions and the way it sort of talks about purpose and all that, it's a genuinely beautiful like thing. And I will say, we're going into spoilers. I thought the ending was quite nice. There was a big, not a negative debate, but a debate of whether or not the ending should be different. And without going into spoilers, I thought it ended rather beautifully because if you ended it one way, it probably would have been too dark for kids to handle. And if you end it the other way, and ending it the other way just seems like right, and you could probably put it up to your own interpretation. Which, hell, the way it ended felt like it's opened up to more interpretations of what could probably happen afterwards, and I think that's kind of amazing. It's probably like the closest to an art film Pixar has made, which is weird to say because they've been like functioning for such a long time. But the way it ends, it kind of felt like one of those art films where it's kind of up to you to decide how it's going to go. And genuinely, and I don't want to throw this word around too much, but it's kind of a masterpiece, and I love it.
Yeah, I, I don't think I can say any more about it than you've already said. It was good to watch. Gave you a lot, gave you enough to think about, and answered the questions as well as they could without going. It is this religion is the right one, and
Yeah,
this one is the wrong one, and if you think that, you're rubbish. And if you think that, it covered like really good questions about what is it to have a soul. What does a
yeah,
soul mean?
yeah, for sure. Like they could have, like it could have, like in any other like company, it could have been like done in a sort of like weird religious angle. Like imagine if Pureflix made this, it would just be Christianity superior. All this is nonsense. But because you've got like um Pixar doing it, where it's a very like partisan view on life after death, it's a very well done like view of it. And I think the fact that like it doesn't exactly go for any other religion, it just sort of goes with its own thing, is very well done.
Yeah. Every time I start thinking, it's yeah, and I'm sick of it. I'll think up a new word for episode 7. But to move on to the next show, the next one I watched what's it called? I'll just double check. I watched The Midnight Sky. George Clooney's.
Oh,
Was
oh,
it
the
his
Deadpool film.
first? Yeah, was it his debut as a director, or this is
Oh
his
no,
second time? No,
I no, not even a second time as well. I'm trying to think of the films he's made. I'm trying to think of his first one. His first one.
It's not his first time being the director. Let's just cover it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do quick math here. Okay, well, what number film did he make? How many movies did George Clooney make? But yeah, this is generally probably his like maybe fifth or sixth, probably because he's made like other films in the past. His other films include Confessions of a Dangerous Mind with Sam Rockwell, which is really really good, very underrated. And he also made I think Good Night and Good Luck, which got him a few Oscar nominations, got more notice as a director. I think there was a third one in there, but I can't remember what it was. And he made Suburbicon, which people don't like, but I think is a very underrated movie.
So that was Sean's long version of telling me I'm wrong. Basically.
Basically, yes. I'm trying to like for those listening. Me telling Martin the long story is like the polite way of saying "shut up, you're wrong."
Give me a break. I normally watch superhero stuff, and we've not really had superhero stuff this year. So
Ooh.
this is my first time paying attention to all this kind of stuff. But if
Ooh.
you're unsure of what the actual story is, it's based on the book that is called Good Morning Midnight by Mark L. Smith, I believe, but I'll double check that later on.
Yeah, I
And
think.
it is a post-apocalyptic tale which follows Augustine, a scientist in the Arctic, as he races to stop Sully and her fellow astronauts from returning home to a mysterious global catastrophe. I ran out of breath there. But it's a really good film that, quite honestly, has depressing moments, but it manages to give you enough questions to make you want to watch the rest of the film,
Mhm,
but also not make it where you're just bored. It's
mhm,
one of those ones where you're like, oh, they never really cover what the catastrophe is. You just know that it's kind of only him kicking around. Like, there's certain moments where he deals with certain things that give you hints towards it, but it's
mhm.
never like, it's not like a global warming film where it's like, we did this to ourselves. It is global warming.
Yeah.
We've ruined our world. It's not. It's like Soul. It doesn't really point blame or take things for anything. It's not one of those ones. It just sort of says, we all know it was coming, and this is what happens when it's happened.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
all the cast are really good. Uh, George Clooney managed to do quite well and cast the younger George Clooney as quite a handsome-looking man.
Mhm.
It's one of those ones where I think, like, either the guy who was cast as young Augustine, who's Ethan Peck, or either he was dubbed over by George Clooney, or he does a really good George Clooney accent. Because it's one of those moments where you're like, you sound really like him. Is that George
Mm.
Clooney doing it, or is that you just saying things?
Yeah, like it's kind of like it's one of those like weirdly like not hard, but like trying to do a George Clooney impression is like either way, you'll either just sound like you're doing a George Clooney impression, or it's like a subpar George Clooney. Like whenever I do a George Clooney impression, it's not particularly that great. You know, you're trying to add the inflections and the other such things that George Clooney has that are quite interesting, make him sound charismatic, and it's like not particularly that great.
Sorry, was that your George Clooney impression? Was it?
It was. It sounded like I was mumbling, which is what it sort of leads to.
I
Which
was
is
very confused there.
so for those listening, how to do a George Clooney impression? And sorry, try to do a George Clooney impression. Mumble with charisma. That's how you do a decent George Clooney impression.
But yeah, a mumble with confidence, basically. It's a. I can't really say too much because if I said a lot, it would spoil the actual film.
Mhm.
And I know it's rubbish when reviewers do that, and they're like, "I can't say too much, but it was good, and you should watch it."
Yeah.
But it was really enjoyable. It was kind of a human story, but
Mhm.
a sort of sci-fi human story where you're just sort of watching this certain moment in time. You're not really like giving their origins and their endings and stuff like that. It's just
Mhm.
you're watching them deal with the situation and how they
Mhm.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Really good. I think you should watch it, and that's all I can really say.
Will do. It's on my list. I like George Clooney as a director. He's a very, very good director. And if you like his stuff, do watch Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. It's probably like out of the films I've seen, I think you'll probably like that one the most. And I do like the cast. Like you've got George Clooney, you've got Felicity Jones, Kyle Chandler, Damian Bashir, which is always nice to see. I'm a big fan of Damian Bashir, and even David Oyelowo, who it's really nice to see because I'm also a big fan of David Oyelowo as well.
Yeah. I can't really say too much. I can't really get into it because it will spoil it.
Yeah, I
But
did hear. I did hear some people being like, "This is one where you're like, you kind of have to go in as like knowing a little as possible."
it
Apparently,
has actually made me, because I am not an avid book reader, I'm an occasional book reader. It has made me want to read the book, so I might give the book a shot.
Hmm.
Have you got one more thing, Sean?
I do. I'm gonna quickly check my list. In fact, I was gonna, and let's see what I probably want to talk about because actually, I felt like I was gonna do this last time for the last episode, but I wasn't able to because Zoom crashed. I think there was just a bunch of other stuff we had to talk about. I think at the time Marvin's Black Bottom came out, and that was one of the big things I want to talk about. I'm going to update you on my little binge that I'm doing on my little brother. You know how I told you we're doing like Glee and American Horror Story season by season?
Yes.
Yes, so currently we're now at American Horror Story Coven, the third season of American Horror Story, and we just passed Glee season 3. So quick thoughts on Glee, and then maybe some quick thoughts on American Horror Story, because we're kind of doing it as a one binge thing because Ryan Murphy was involved in both shows. American Horror Glee season 3 felt like the end to an initial run, if that makes sense. Because for those who can't remember, Martin here has watched Glee before, so he's kind of familiar with like how the show goes. Um, but yeah, anyway, so Glee season 3 kind of felt like the end to an initial run because from what some friends have told me and from what my little brother has told me, it kind of goes downhill at some point in season 4 where you're kind of just like, okay, what's the point of this? Why are we doing season 4 of this? Because if you take away like the rest of the show, season 3 kind of felt like a concrete ending. Like it felt like that was going to like be where they wanted to be, if that makes sense. Like how you have the narrative journey taking them to like one point of the story and you stop and you kind of think to yourself, right, this feels like what they had in mind for the way the show was going to go.
Yeah,
But I will say,
I was gonna say that. That's what it feels like. They were Ryan Murphy had the idea for 3 seasons, and then they were commissioned for more.
yeah, and then they were just like, well, god damn it, gonna have to write some stuff here. Ah, quick, get some new folk in here. Half of them are gone. But yeah, I really like season 3, despite some of the shortcomings that they had. Like they have a part of the season where Quinn Fabray, the cheerleader character, um, gets in a car accident, and you kind of don't really focus on the drama of that. They kind of just go, "Here's Gwen in that wheelchair now. She's happy, I guess. That she's in a wheelchair. What the what?"
The way I describe Glee at points is, have you ever seen any of the Spanish soap operas, even if they like come past?
I'm
Even in like
aware.
passing,
Yeah,
you're aware that they get ridiculous at points.
yeah.
Like season 3 onwards of Glee, in my opinion, you wouldn't be surprised if they're like, this is Mr. Shu's evil twin that he's just found out about. It's like, why? It was just a
Like,
show about people singing. Why is that
yeah,
changed?
I've been told like there've been some points where the show does get rather ridiculous at points. Not just with like certain like logical stuff, but just sort of like some characters will just be unnecessarily cruel, and you're like, why do we like this character again? And then there's like, but I will tell you though, even despite the lows that kind of like Lee kind of goes for, there's some really strong highs. Like in season 3, they had an episode where one of the characters, I won't go into too much spoilers, but you know one of the bully characters, Rock Stansky or something, like he's a bully character that like harasses
Yes.
Kurt, and then the two of them kind of become friendly almost.
Kirk, I want to say his name is.
No, Kurt. Kurt
Kirk, yeah.
Hummel. The bully character who plays him, I can't remember his name, but has Rock in there or something.
I will
But
just
he there, yeah, while Martin does that, I'll explain. There's an episode involving him where it's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen, and the way Glee portrays it is so well done. It's almost like Murphy, Falchuk, and Ian Brenning. I'm sorry if I mess up your name there, sir. It's almost like they get their demographic are the same age as the characters in the story, and it's one of those like things where it's kind of incredible when Glee hits that sort of high, because you can definitely tell they care about their demographic and they want to show to their demographic that these things can happen in a high school environment. And the way to portray that character's arc is very well done. And I am not gonna lie, I cried, I tear up. Yes, that's right. Glee had me crying sometimes. Leave me alone. Again, when they reach their highs, it reaches their high.
Okay, I have Googled. His name is Dave Karofsky, the character,
Kowalski. There we go,
and he
Kowalski.
is played rather well by Max Adler.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, Max Adler's performance in like season 3 and like 1 or 2 episodes. I think maybe more. There's like more. There's a lot of episodes in Glee. Really good. Really well done. I love his arc. I can't wait to see him again because I think he doesn't come back until like maybe halfway season 4, halfway season 5. I can't remember. By the way, great job. Great job all around. And I'm gonna be honest. There's a part of me that's kind of looking forward to season 4, but not really because I've heard season 4 goes downhill. But at the same time, mostly for meme value. My little brother has kind of been like, yeah, season 4 was going to be totally the best, man. Like, really, really good. So there's a point of me that's like, right, I'm looking forward to it mostly for the memes. But at the same time, I'm not looking forward to how it goes downhill and what it does to some of the characters, because I've heard it does some really trash things to the characters.
Yeah, it's definitely like obviously you have that episode in season 3, but there is certain there's streaks of rubbish, I'll be honest, and then like all shows that go on further than they should have, they have
Mhm.
moments of gold where they're like, we'll cover this in a really good episode, and then
Yeah.
they'll have other moments where it'll just be rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah. So hopefully Glee season 4 was good, but going to American Horror Story real briefly. Coven is honestly both underrated because a lot of people give it too much shtick. At the same time, there are some issues I have of Coven, like some technical stuff where like the editing for some scenes is really jangy and kind of weird. It reminds me of like Liam Neeson in Taken 2 or 3 jumping over a fence, and if you're looking for some context, there's a scene in like Taken 2 or 3 where Liam Neeson's jumping over a fence, and it's like there's like 50 different cuts in him just climbing over one singular fence, and it's one of the funniest things you'll ever see. It's like genuinely done for no reason other than because they're trying to make it exciting. So they have cuts like that in like not Glee, sorry, American Horror Story season 3 that are very annoying, and there are some characters in Coven that are like just kind of you wouldn't want to hang out with them. There are some where you're kind of just like, oh man, this character's pretty cool, and then you have some characters where you're like, oh man, you're kind of cruel for no reason, and I don't want to hang out with you no more. And then you have like Coven, where you have like other technical stuff that's kind of annoying. You have a little song motif that's kind of gets in your nerves and all that sort of stuff. Besides from that, it's fun, which is kind of which is one way to describe Coven. It's just a fun part of American Horror Story. But it does make me excited to watch Freak Show because it's kind of getting me thinking. Right, I think Freak Show could be my favorite because I think Asylum we finished last year, and I think Asylum is very good, one of the better seasons of American Horror Story. But I don't think it's my favorite anymore. So I think with season 4 it could be my favorite. It's almost like a search, you see, a search for my favorite. So Coven is okay so far, and yeah, probably I think it's kind of a season where it's like, yeah, this is American Horror Story doing okay and it's pretty fun. But besides from that, boy, I'm looking forward to watching American Horror Story Freak Show and even Glee to an extent where I'm going to be like, oh, look at all this nonsense that's on screen right now. I can't wait for this.
I can't speak about American Horror Story, but Glee. What I obviously like about Glee is when they do the mashups, I think is what they call them.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me actually. They did a really good mashup in Glee. I think it involved. I think it's 30 season. They involved 2 songs by Adele. Someone Like You and Rumor Has It, and it's probably.
I was literally about to bring that up.
Oh my
That's a
god!
really
Whoa!
good, like that. When I think of mashups, that's probably the best one they do.
Oh my, yeah, same. Like genuinely, it's the best mashup they've done, and it might honestly be out of the songs and versions of songs they've done in Glee, it might be my favorite, just because it's the most out of the box mixture, and the way they instrumentalize it and all that sort of stuff is very well done. Also, quick question: is instrumentalize a word?
Oh, it is now.
There we go. I invented a new word, ladies and gentlemen. But the way they instrumentalize it and all that, how they take a relatively slow song like Someone Like You and a very fast, upbeat, kind of groovy beat like Rumor Has It and mash them together. It's kind of genius. And it's like, whoa, I can both like jam out to this and be really sad. So it's like a little session where you're like dancing and at the same time kind of crying because you're like, I'll never find someone like this person. At the same time, man, it's so groovy.
Without getting into it, like I think the lead up to that song also makes it much better.
Oh god,
Like
yeah.
what happens to a character, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that is really really good. Uh, I think we're going to wrap up here though because we're coming up to an hour and 20 minutes. This
Yeah,
is an
before.
hour long show that has been an hour once. Just to let you know.
Yeah, we need to like keep our times in check, but that's probably down to me because I like to do the talking.
Like literally, and I think it's both of us.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat. You might be able to hear it in the thing. My cats are battering each other right now for some reason.
Oh, I heard a meow. I heard a really aggressive meow. Oh man, it's like they're fighting each other. Hold on. So who's fighting right now, Martin?
Uh, I'm going to assume because Wilbur's at my foot, it is Lump and Ribbon.
I bet I bet a £20 note that they're gonna win. That Ruben's gonna kick his ass.
I was gonna who's gonna win? You said they're gonna win.
Or Ruben, sorry. Of course I kid. I'm not betting on them because I'm not gonna kill each other. They're just being playful. I just thought it'd be funny because, haha, funny joke.
The, what's fun? What's funny about them play fighting? Because it is play fighting. If you're listening, they're not actually beating the shit out of each other. It's play fighting. Lump has done something I've never had a cat do, where he almost like. I'll link it to the next show that I was going to talk about quickly, and then we'll finish it.
Yeah.
He's almost like he's doing karate, where he yells before he attacks.
Like, that's his war cry. I think it could just be his war cry.
Like what you may or may not be hearing, and if you're not hearing, this is no rubbish. But yeah, any meow and that is vaguely aggressive sounding that you hear is Lump before he jumps at his brother.
Oh no, I'm your witness here. I heard a meow there. I'm your witness. I believe you. And I'm imagining
properly. We think that they're hurting each other, but genuinely, it is he will yell what I can only assume is profanities at his brother.
Like the way you're putting it, I just imagine like being this like sort of Viking raider type, just being like just sort of doing a war cry before attacking his brethren. It's quite, it's quite something.
Sorry.
Well, there it is again.
But anyway, to link karate to the last thing I'm going to talk about, because we'll talk about it while it's still fresh in everyone's thing, and then I'll wrap up because, Cobra Kai season 3 came out New Year's. If for Christmas we got Soul, New Year's we got Cobra Kai, and just that's him yelling Cobra Kai as he attacks people. But
like, oh, he's been influenced by that show, Martin. You're putting a bad influence on your cat kids.
Bad influence into the cat. But without going too much into it, because it's still fresh, and I wouldn't want to spoil it for people, it's made me care about a 30-year-old series. Like, I say what you will, dead franchise, but his literally, it has made me care over the last year about what's happening in these people's lives, even though it was just a one-off 80s film that then got dragged out into sequels and now is a show. Like, it's a really, really, it's soap opera-y, but soap opera-y in the best way. Where you know how if there's just moments where you're like, oh, this is really, really good, and oh, what's happened here, and oh, this is good. And they have some fourth wall break jokes where obviously everyone cares about karate in the Cobra Kai series, and there's moments where like I think council people and all these other folk are like, why do you care so much about karate?
Like even the creators of it who are probably fans of the original like movie are like, yeah, these characters we care about way too much. Let's address that elephant in the room.
But I like the fact they managed to get everyone back. Obviously, they did not manage to get the guy who plays Mr. Miyagi back.
Yeah, Pat something.
Something or other.
Mm-hmm. Like,
but he manages. I'm just looking. Pat Mortia.
It could be that Pat. I'm just gonna stick with Pat just because it's in my mind. I just don't want to say it in case it sounds way off the mark. But I will say I've heard some really good things about not like the show. I've heard decent things, but I think in regards to both Ralph Macchio and the guy who plays Johnny, like I think the villain character from the first movie, I've heard nothing but great things about the performances to a point where like they've kind of outdone themselves as actors according to some people.
Both of them, well, vague spoilers for the first season, but the proper bad guy from Karate Kid 1 appears, John Kreese. Where obviously, and I've said this to you before, they've had 30 years to decide their characters and work on their characters and decide on the motivation, and it's just a really good show.
Like
it's a great show, and we should. I'll say keep watching it, but I'm also watching the time because we've went 20 minutes over.
Yeah, I was going to say something there, but I thought, nope, save it. If you ever get to watch it, Sean, just save it for the next time we ever get to talk about it.
when you finally do a binge watch of it and get around to it, we'll talk about it more.
Yeah.
But Cobra
Yeah.
Kai season 3, if you watch the first 2, it's really good. To go with Soul, the soundtrack's really well. Really well, really good.
Really well. Soundtrack, how you doing? Oh well, thank you.
Soundtrack's doing really well. But with that, and the fact that we're coming up to just over an hour and 20 minutes, again, I'll let Sean sign off.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That has been Walking Skull. Martin from the Walking Part, say your goodbyes and good lucks for lockdown, I guess.
Goodbyes, good lucks. Happy New Year, actually, for everyone. We didn't really mention that to anyone.
Oh yeah. I'm here. So before I do go, I'll just say a quick little message for those who are like struggling with the lockdown. Keep going. Just there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and obviously we all have to be cautiously optimistic about it. But please, please stay safe. There's a new strain out there, and it's like not really going well. But let's be cautiously optimistic. Please stay safe. Stay inside. Do whatever you can. Just please stay safe and all that sort of stuff. I know I repeat myself, but just please stay safe. And we hope we're providing you some legitimately good entertainment while this is going down. Not to be like PSA and all that. I just want to be hopeful and like hope people are listening to this are doing okay. Anyway, I've been Sean Scullion from the Skull, the Walking Skull Part. That was Martin Walker of the Walking Part, and we thank you for listening. Please stay safe. We love you, and yeah, just look out for each other, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And also, Sean, you owe me 20 quid because lump one.